Okay, everybody. Well, good evening. And we are studying the two chapters actually tonight. How Pariksit receives the age of Kali, which is chapter 16, and chapter 17 we're going to also read, which is Kali's punishment and reward. And so we'll be studying that tonight. So we'll be calling on you, Madhumita, if you don't mind, to read a little bit. I don't know if you want to read or not, Jai Krishna. I'm not sure if Bhavananda, how he'll be able to read tonight, but we'll just go through it and go as much as we can, and then stop us anywhere you want to along the way, and we can discuss any portion of it at all. Just go ahead and interrupt us, okay? So I'm going to start out with my pranams to my spiritual master, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gaurivani Pracharane, Nirvishesha Shringavari Paschachadesh Tarane, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. And then before we read Bhagavatam, we always chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so in the previous chapter, which is the Pandavas retire timely, and just to bring everybody back up to date, this chapter, this whole section of the first canto is right after the Battle of Kurukshetra. So there's a lot of great stories here in this. Hey, Rakesh, is that you?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Oh, so nice to see you. How are you tonight?
Thank you. I'm just fine. It's nice to be here. Thanks for arranging for the invitation again.
No problem at all. Do you have your Bhagavatam ready to read from? Can you read with us a little tonight?
Sure, if you give me 10 seconds. Which, the first canto?
Your first canto, chapter 16 and 17.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Yep, no problem. So sorry about that, guys. We'll edit all that out later. But so in the previous chapter, the Pandavas had retired, right? So Vidura had come to see Dhritarashtra, and he left home. Gandhari had left. You know, everybody had left. Krishna had left the planet. Arjuna came back. He was despondent. I don't know if you guys remember this from the last chapters, but that was the case of it. So to button up that chapter where it says the Pandavas retire timely, it says, thus by pure consciousness and due to constant devotional remembrance, they, the Pandavas, attained to the spiritual sky, which is ruled over by the Supreme Narayan, Lord Krishna. This is attained only by those who meditate upon the one Supreme Lord without deviation. This abode of Lord Sri Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan, cannot be attained by persons who are absorbed in the material conception of life, but the Pandavas, being completely washed of all material contamination, attained that abode in their very self-same bodies. So they were completely spiritualized and had gone back home, back to Godhead. So in the next chapter now, we're discussing Maharaja Pariksit and his life as king. Now Yudhishthira's left, everybody's left, Arjuna's left, Pandavas have all gone. And now Pariksit is the new king. So we'll see what Pariksit, how he receives the age of Kali, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the winter age of mankind, right? So we want to see how a king, a saintly Raja Rishi, will address some of the issues that we're about to hear about. So in chapter 16, how Pariksit received the age of Kali, I'll read a few. And then whoever wants to pick it up can read a few, and then we'll pass it around, okay? And I see there's some other folks joining. I'm very glad to see everybody here tonight. Very grateful and honored to have you, okay? So I'm reading from chapter 16, text 1, and how Pariksit received the age of Kali. Sutta Goswami said, O learned Brahmins, Maharaja Pariksit then began to rule over the world as a great devotee of the Lord, under the instructions of the best of the twice-born Brahmanas. He ruled by those great qualities which were foretold by expert astrologers at the time of his birth. And that's back in chapter 12, where the astrologers came and delineated his magnanimous qualities, awesome qualities that he had. And we'll go back and discuss that if we have time. So in text 2, King Pariksit married the daughter of King Uttara and begot 4 sons headed by Maharaja Jamanjaya. Maharaj Pariksit, after having selected Kripacharya for the guidance of the spiritual master, performed 3 horse sacrifices on the banks of the Ganges. These were executed with sufficient rewards for the attendants. And at these sacrifices, even the common man could see demigods. This is how holy these personalities are. These were Rajarishis. These were saintly kings. So once when Maharaj Pariksit was on the way to conquer the world, he saw the master of Kali Yuga, who was lower than a Sudra, disguised as a king and herding the legs of a cow and bull. The king at once caught hold of him to deal sufficient punishment. Don't forget, everybody, go ahead and mute out if you will, and then at the right time, click back in. So it says, the devotees of the Lord are accustomed to licking up the honey available from the lotus feet of the Lord. What is the use of topics which simply waste one's valuable life? O Sutta Goswami, there are those amongst men who desire freedom from death and get eternal life. They escape the slaughtering process by calling the controller of death Yamaraj. As long as Yamaraj, who causes everyone's death, is present here, no one shall meet with death. The great sages have invited the controller of death, Yamaraj, who is the representative of the Lord. Living beings who are under his grip should take advantage by hearing the deathless nectar in the form of this narration of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Now that's one to put on your mirror when you get up in the morning and read this one. So it says, living beings who are under the grip of, birth and death should take advantage by hearing the deathless nectar in the form of this narration of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Lazy human beings with a paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping and the day performing activities that are for naught. Sutta Goswami said, while Maharaj Pariksit was residing in the capital of the Kuru Empire, the symptoms of the age of Kali began to infiltrate within the jurisdiction of his state. When he learned about this, he did not think the matter very palatable. This did, however, give him a chance to fight. He took up his bow and his arrows, and he prepared himself for military activities. Maharaj Pariksit sat on a chariot drawn by black horses. His flag was marked with a sign of a lion. Being so decorated and surrounded by charioteers, cavalry, elephants, and infantry soldiers, he left the capital to conquer in all directions. Maharaj Pariksit then conquered all parts of the earthly planet, Bhadrashva, Ketumala, Bharata, the northern Kuru, the Kimpurasa, etc., and exacted tributes from their respective rulers. Whenever or wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashvatam, which was the Brahmastra weapon, the nuclear weapon that was sent to kill him. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vrishni and Pritha due to their later's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklaces and clothing. Maharaj Pariksit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc., according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Pariksit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Now you may hear from me of what happened while Maharaj Pariksit was passing his days hearing of the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in the thought of them. So who would like to pick up at text 18? Okay, Rakesh, you go. Unmute, Rakesh. And that's text 18.
Sorry about that. Okay.
That's okay.
The personality of religious principles, Dharma, was wandering about in the form of a bull, and he met the personality of earth in the form of a cow who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus Dharma questioned the earth as follows. Text 19. Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked, Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease? Or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place? Text 20. I have lost my 3 legs and am now standing on one only. Are you lamenting for my state of existence? Or are you in great anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat-eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought? Text 21. Are you feeling compunction for the unhappy women and children who are left forlorn by unscrupulous persons? Or are you unhappy because the goddess of learning is being handled by brahmanas addicted to acts against the principles of religion? Or are you sorry to see that the brahmanas have taken shelter of administrative families that do not respect Brahminical culture? Text 22. The so-called administrators are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they have put all state affairs into disorder. Are you now lamenting this disorder? Now the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, etc., and they are inclined to perform such anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this? Text 23. O Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, incarnated himself as Lord Shri Krishna just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities here are transcendental, and they cement the path of liberation. You are now bereft of his presence. You are probably now thinking of those activities and feeling sorry in their absence. Text 24. Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away all your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods. Just let me know when you want me to pass it on to somebody else, please.
About 20, and then we'll give it to somebody else.
Oh, okay. Text 25. The earthly deity in the form of a cow thus replied to the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once you too were maintained by your 4 legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. Text 26 through 30. In him reside 1. Truthfulness, 2. Cleanliness, 3. Intolerance of another's unhappiness, 4. The power to control anger, 5. Self-satisfaction, 6. Straightforwardness, 7. Steadiness of mind, 8. Control of the sense organs, 9. Responsibility, 10. Equality, 11. Tolerance, 12. Equanimity, 13. Faithfulness, 14. Knowledge, 15. Absence of sense enjoyment, 16. Leadership, 17. Chivalry, 18. Influence, 19. The power to make everything possible, 20. The discharge of proper duty, 21. Complete independence, 22. Dexterity, 23. Fullness of all beauty, 24. Serenity, 25. Kind-heartedness, 26. Ingenuity, 27. Gentility. 28. Magnanimity. 29. Determination. 30. Perfection in all knowledge. 31. Proper execution. 32. Possession of all objects of enjoyment. 33. Joyfulness. 34. Immovability. 35. Fidelity. 36. Fame. 37. Worship. 38. Pridelessness. 39. Being as the personality of Godhead. 40. Eternity, and many other transcendental qualities which are eternally present and never to be separated from Him. That personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all goodness and beauty, Lord Sri Krishna, has now closed his transcendental pastimes on the face of the earth. In his absence, the age of Kali has spread its influence everywhere. So I am sorry to see this condition of existence.
All right. Very good. So, Madhumita, would you like to read a little bit? Thank you, Rakesh. That was very, very nice. And I may call on you again.
Okay.
Yeah. Text 31.
Text 31. I am thinking about myself and also, O best amongst the demigods, about you, as well as about all the demigods, sages, denizens of Pitraloka, devotees of the Lord, and all men obedient to the system of Varna and Ashrama in human society. Lakshmi ji, the goddess of fortune, whose glance of grace was sought by demigods like Brahma, and for whom they surrendered many a day unto the personality of Godhead, gave up her own abode in the forest of lotus flowers and engaged herself in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. I was endowed with specific powers to supersede the fortune of all the three planetary systems by being decorated with the impressions of the flag, thunderbolt, elephant driving rod, and lotus flower, which are signs of the lotus feet of the Lord. But at the end, when I felt I was so fortunate, the Lord left me. Text 34. O personality of religion, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, you were also in a distressed condition, weakened in your standing strength, and thus he also incarnated by his internal energy in the family of the Yadus to relieve you. Who therefore can tolerate the pangs of separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He could conquer the gravity and passionate wrath of his sweethearts like Satyabhama by his sweet smile of love, pleasing glance, and hearty appeals. When he traversed my earth's surface, I would be immersed in the dust of his lotus feet and thus would be sumptuously covered with grass, which appeared like hair standing on me out of pleasure. Text 36. While the earth and the personality of religion were thus engaged in conversation, the saintly King Pariksit reached the shore of the Saraswati River, which flowed towards the east.
So we're going to continue reading chapter 17.
Chapter 17, yeah.
Punishment
Chapter
and reward.
17, Punishment and Reward of Kali. Text 1. Suta Goswami said, after reaching that place, Maharaja Pariksit observed that a lower caste Sudra, dressed like a king, was beating a cow and a bull with a club as if they had no owner. The bull was as white as a white lotus flower. He was terrified of the Sudra who was beating him, and he was so afraid that he was standing on one leg, trembling and urinating. Although the cow is beneficial because one can draw religious principles from her, she was now rendered poor and calfless. Her legs were being beaten by a Sudra. There were tears in her eyes, and she was distressed and weak. She was hankering after some grass in the field. Maharaja Pariksit, well equipped with arrows and bow and seated on a gold embossed chariot, spoke to him, the Sudra, with a deep voice sounding like thunder. Oh, who are you? You appear to be strong, and yet you dare kill within my protection those who are helpless. By your dress, you pose yourself to be a godly man like a king. But your deeds, you are opposing the principles of the twice born Kshatriyas. You rogue, do you dare beat an innocent cow because Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the carrier of the Gandhiva bow, are out of sight? Since you are beating the innocent in a secluded place, you are considered a culprit and therefore deserve to be killed. Then he, Maharaj Pariksit, asked the bull, Oh, who are you? Are you a bull as white as a white lotus? Or are you a demigod? You have lost three of your legs and are moving on only one. Are you some demigod causing us grief in the form of a bull? Now, for the first time in a kingdom well protected by the arms of the kings of the Kuru dynasty, I see you grieving with tears in your eyes. Up till now, no one on earth has ever shed tears because of royal negligence. O son of Surabhi, you need lament no longer now. There is no need to fear this low class Sudra. And O mother cow, as long as I am living as the ruler and subduer of all envious men, there is no cause for you to cry. Everything will be good for you. O chest one, the king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. Should I continue or?
Is anyone else that would like to read for a moment? Which text are you on now?
Text 12.
Text 12. Okay. If nobody else will grab it, I'll grab a little more, and then we'll go back to Rakesh, and you can read some more, Madhumita.
Okay.
So text 12. He, Maharaj Pariksit, repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull thus, O son of Sarabi, who has cut off your three legs? In the state of the kings who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. O bull, you are offenseless and thoroughly honest. Therefore, I wish all good to you. Please tell me of the perpetrator of these mutilations, which blacken the reputation of the sons of Pritha. Whoever causes offenseless living beings to suffer must fear me anywhere and everywhere in the world. By curbing dishonest miscreants, one automatically benefits the offenseless. An upstart living being who commits offenses by torturing those who are offenseless shall be directly uprooted by me, even though he be a denizen of heaven with armor and decorations. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to law-abiding persons and to chastise those who stray from the ordinances of the scriptures in ordinary times when there is no emergency. The personality of religion said, these words just spoken by you befit a person of the Pandava dynasty. Captivated by the devotional qualities of the Pandavas, even Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, performed duties as a messenger. O greatest among human beings, it is difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. Some of the philosophers who deny all sorts of duality declare that one's own self is responsible for his personal happiness and distress. Others say that superhuman powers are responsible, while yet others say that activity is responsible. And the gross materialists maintain that nature is the ultimate cause. There are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. O sage amongst kings, judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. Sutta Goswami said, O best among the Brahmanas, the emperor Pariksit, thus hearing the personality of religion speak, was fully satisfied, and without mistake or regret, he gave his reply. Does anybody else like to pick it up from there? Text 22. Anybody? You want to?
I'll do it.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Okay. Text 22. The king said, O you who are in the form of a bull, you know the truth of religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion. Text 23. Thus it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculation or by word jugglery. Text 24. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken due to rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication. Text 25. You are now standing on 1 leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. Text 26. The burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the personality of Godhead and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints. Text 27. Now she, the chaste one, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of Godhead, laments her future with tears in her eyes. For now she is being ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers. Text 28. Maharaj Pariksit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly, thus pacified the personality of religion and the earth. Then he took up his sharp sword to kill the personality of Kali, who is the cause of all irreligion. Text 29. When the personality of Kali understood that the king was willing to kill him, he at once abandoned the dress of a king and, under pressure of fear, completely surrendered to him, bowing his head. Text 30. Maharaj Pariksit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. Text 31. The king thus said, we have inherited the fame of Arjun. Therefore, since you have surrendered yourself with folded hands, you need not fear for your life. But you cannot remain in my kingdom, for you are the friend of irreligion.
Okay, Madhumita. Are you there? Madhumita?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You okay?
Text 32.
Yeah.
If the personality of Kali, irreligion, is allowed to act as a man god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Therefore, O friend of irreligion, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to truth and religious principles for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In all sacrificial ceremonies, although sometimes a demigod is worshipped, the Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead is worshipped because he is the super soul of everyone and exists both inside and outside like the air. Thus, it is he only who awards all welfare to the worshipper. Sri Suta Goswami said the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Maharaj Pariksit, began to tremble in fear. Seeing the king before him like Yamraj, ready to kill him, Kali spoke to the king as follows. O your majesty, though I may live anywhere and everywhere under your order, I shall but see you with bow and arrows wherever I look. Therefore, O chief amongst the protectors of religion, please fix some place for me where I can live permanently under the protection of your government. Suta Goswami said Maharaj Pariksit, thus being petitioned by the personality of Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter were performed. The personality of Kali asked for something more, and because of his begging, the king gave him permission to live where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Thus, the personality of Kali, by the direction of Maharaj Pariksit, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. Text 41. Therefore, whoever desires progressive well being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasas, should never come in contact with the 4 above mentioned irreligious principles. Thereafter, the king re established the lost legs of the personality of religion, the bull, and by encouraging activities, he sufficiently improved the condition of the earth. The most fortunate emperor, Maharaj Pariksit, who was entrusted with the kingdom of Hastinapur by Maharaj Yudhishthir when he desired to retire to the forest, is now ruling the world with great success due to his being glorified by the deeds of the kings of Kuru dynasty. Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, is so experienced that by dint of his expert administration and patronage, it has been possible for you to perform a sacrifice such as this.
Okay, very good. 2 chapters, and we read them in short order. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much for that. So, are there any comments or questions about this so far? Any elucidations? Anything you might have you'd like to make a comment on? Please do so.
I have a question.
Yep.
In text 41, it was a little confused by this. So therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the 4 above-mentioned irreligious principles. So I can understand all of them, but what about the king? I thought the kings had to deal with wealth. They had to collect taxes.
Well, they do, but because they're fixed, like we're talking about Raja Rishis here. See, that's how Kali Yuga actually started. The kings became contaminated. They began to exploit the citizens. They gave up sacrifices to the Lord and distribution of the wealth. And we see that what has happened in Kali Yuga. Even it says that Maharaj Pariksit started seeing the telltale signs of the infiltration of Kali Yuga into his kingdom. And he says that it was the first time in history, at least in their history, that any of these symptoms of Kali had manifested for them to witness, right? So I was talking about that earlier. Yeah, kings have to do a lot of stuff. Kings are allowed to hunt. They're allowed to have multiple wives. They're allowed to do a lot of things that brahmacharis, sannyasis, and people who are renunciates are not allowed to do. So they're the arms of society, and therefore they have to protect the rest of the body of society, which includes the head, the brahmanas, the belly, the vaishyas, which are the workers, the merchants and farmers, and then of course the sudras, which are the legs of society. So in this way, the king has certain responsibilities that we don't see in the other caste. So yeah, but anybody who wants to make any progress in their spiritual life, it's pretty clear, should avoid any of those things that were like liquor, intoxication, prostitution, lust, greed, envy, animosity. All these things are created in these places that Kali has gone to. So because he surrendered, because Kali surrendered to Maharaj Pariksit, he was bound by the kingly code to protect him. Just like Lord Ramchandra, whenever someone on a battlefield would lay down their weapons, he would immediately give them protection. And there's a wonderful verse in the Ramayana about that anyone who lays down their weapons and surrenders to me, I guarantee their protection. So these are very, very important qualities of a king. And so if we go back to the chapter 16, right? And you look at the first text in that chapter, the first thing it says in the second part of that text, it says, he ruled by great qualities which were foretold by expert astrologers at the time of his birth. So this is traditional in the Vedic culture. You have an astrological reading. They tell you when, they can tell you what you're going to accomplish in your life, when you're going to die, how you're going to die, when you're going to die, how many children you're going to have. They can tell you all of these things. And because the Vedic astrology is based in actual science. And so therefore they can understand the influences of these stellar bodies, and they can understand how they would do that. So when he talks about he ruled with these qualities, what qualities are they talking about? Now, here's the thing, okay? In our country, in America, or anywhere in the world, great rulers were originally determined by the quality of their character, right? But somehow or another, over these last years, these last decades, all of that has been thrown out the window. And you can't find an honest man. Politicians, as a matter of fact, Chanakya Pandit said, don't never trust a politician, okay? Because politicians are looking to get your votes, and they're willing to do whatever's necessary to obtain power. And, they want to control people in this Kali Yuga. Fame, profit, adoration, distinction. These are their motivations: wealth, money, women, lust, power. If you look at the life of these great demons like Hiranyakashipu and Ravana, you'll see that they were the epitome of what a demoniac personality is described in the Bhagavad Gita by Sri Krishna as. So there's a chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, divine and demoniac qualities. You can carefully read those. And if we base our life on those qualities, we can find really where we're messing up. Why we're having so much difficulty in the world is because we're not following these truths. We're not following these principles. Nobody's doing this anymore. So when they talk about Maharaja Pariksit, it talks about how he had all these wonderful qualities of a devotee, and how he protected all of the persons, including the animals, in his jurisdiction. And so any living entity was under his protection. So if any living entity was being abused, he would be there to chastise that personality. In the Bible, it says that we're given dominion over all the creatures of the earth. But dominion doesn't mean that we should slaughter them, or that we should abuse them, or that we should misuse them, right? We have dominion over our children, but we don't slaughter them and eat them, right? So the idea is that because you're given dominion, that's a great power. That's for protection. It's not for exploitation. It's not meant for exploitation. Because you're given a higher position. If you misuse that position, that's a sinful act, and it will produce sinful reactions in karmic retribution that you'll suffer or enjoy in your oncoming life or next lives, and so forth and so on. So he was happy to receive the chance to fight against any kind of bad elements. He was happy to do that. Previously, all he'd been doing is going around hearing about the glories of his dynasty, and everybody's eulogizing him, and they're giving him these big seats and so forth. And he's collecting taxes from them and so forth and so on. It's very peaceful. When it says he's conquering the world, it doesn't mean he's going out to kill anyone. He's going out to make sure that their kingdoms are in order. So sometimes when the king arrives, he has these multiple questions. How's your kingdom? How's your armies? How's your wives? How's your treasury? Right? How's the economy of the citizens? Is there any disease, any problem? They want to know like that. And you can see that in Srimad Bhagavatam. As you read Bhagavatam, you'll see they address one another in that way. So he was happy to go out and take a look at the world and see what his dominion was, what he had dominion over. And but he, again, was a saintly king. So he didn't go out to do what we see conquerors in the modern era do, which is to go out and rape the women, kill the men, and kill them in their villages, kill them in their sleep. This was a chivalrous war that had taken place, Battle of Kurukshetra. They had regulated times when the battle would start, when there would be breaks in the battle. And at the end of the day, they would even come to each other's camps and cajole with one another. Ah, great fight, great, wonderful effort. They were hale and hearty. They were, and their thing was, if a man dropped his weapon, they didn't just kill him while he was reaching to get his weapon. They allowed him to regain his weapon and fight nobly, face to face. These were kshatriyas. These were holy warriors. This is what a holy warrior is supposed to be. Now, today, we see perversions of so-called holy warriors who are fighting for a sectarian cause that will benefit only a section of a population. See, Sanatana Dharma is not a sectarian concept. Sanatana Dharma is meant for all living beings. Yeah, all the population of the world. Because Sanatana Dharma means the eternal function of a soul, and that is service to the Supreme Soul. And we see that all living entity, all animals, they're serving. The aquatics are serving the mammals with the legs. The mammals are then serving the larger mammals, right? Plants are serving the animals. We see the trees are producing oxygen. We're producing carbon dioxide. When we breathe out, we serve the trees. And when the trees breathe out, they serve us. Everything is built on this service model. And so devotional service is the goal of all religion. It's not a sectarian concept. It's not something you have to convert from or to. It's your natural nature within your heart of hearts. Just like water's a true condition is liquidity. It may become a gas for a period. It may become frozen and a solid for a period, but it always goes back to its original constitutional position. So that constitutional position that we're talking about is called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means loving union with the Supreme Person. And why wouldn't there be a loving union? If you have a father that's giving you everything, the air, the food, the water, the shelter, all the pleasures and senses of the body, nourishment, all these things are taking place. The sun is rising, the moon is going on, the vegetables, the flavors, the taste, the aromas. If you read Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the opulence of the absolute, he gives plenty of reasons how you can be Krishna conscious, how you can know God, how you can fall back in love with God, including the universal form, which left Arjuna trembling, as a matter of fact, and asking Krishna, please take this form away and bring your beautiful original two-armed form, which is very lovable. So the idea is that we're talking about a different time, a different class of men, people who were saintly, people who listened to the Brahmins, to the older people. You heard that a minute ago. So they listened to the older people. They listen to the Brahmins. They want the voice of wisdom. The Kshatriyas carry out the orders of the Brahmins. That's the idea. So the Kshatriyas are not they may be ruling class, but they don't do anything without the sanction of the spiritual master. And therefore, they stay in a position of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So much so that we've seen the Personality of Godhead personally descend before some of these kings. As you read through the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll see this after they've done good service. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope it did.
Yes, it did. And just to kind of summarize, I like to summarize just to make sure I understand it correctly.
Yep.
So as far as the king handling wealth, we can say that there are two things that have to be there. One, they have to have the saintly qualities, proper training, and then they have to handle that wealth properly for the benefit of people. And I guess that goes with anybody who has wealth in the modern age, people who are rich and powerful. It's important that they have good qualities and that they use it properly, right?
Well, absolutely. As a matter of fact, they say that money is the root of all evil. And that's just a standard axiom, because normally when you get money, the first thing you're going to do is go do all of these sense gratificatory things that you couldn't afford to do. And that causes great distress and great karmic reaction and disturbance in society. Matter of fact, these people who are winning the lottery, everybody wants to win the lottery. You got about a 1 in a trillion chance to do that. So you're really truly hoping against hope. And so many unfortunate people who don't have the money are spending it on that instead of food or clothing or shelter for their own families. So it's very, very bad karma. The whole thing is very bad. Gambling is one of these places where Kali is allowed to live. And so in gambling, when they win these lotteries, they don't normally last very long. I mean, they literally, it kills them. They do whatever it is that they're addicted to in such excess that they generally lose their life in the process. Not only do they lose their money, but they lose their life because they're not qualified to have the money. But Prabhupada said a Vaishnava knows exactly what to do with wealth. He knows exactly how to engage money in the service of the Lord. There's no question in his mind how he should engage Lakshmi in the service of the Lord. And so if we look at the life of great Vaishnavas and great gurus and spiritual masters, we'll see that they were able to re-engage that money for the benefit of society by building temples, by disseminating this knowledge, by getting this information out to people so that they can correct their behavior and they can live a life that's not only happy in this world, but is ultimately supremely happy by going back home, back to Godhead. So you are right. Wealth it's kind of like power. Wealth and power. You know, power corrupts, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, they say. So if you don't know, if you're not raised in a brahmacharya ashram, if you're not taught the qualities that you just read a minute ago, Rakesh, those wonderful qualities, one right after the other, about Lord Sri Krishna, of which we try to live according to his will. And so his will is that we should also live according to those same principles. And those are delineated throughout the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and throughout the Vedic literatures. So, okay. So basically what had happened here, he came upon Dharma, the bull, and Mother Earth, Mother Bhumi, as a cow. And Kali was dressed as a king. And he had already cut off 3 legs and was beating brutally the cow. And he asked him, he said, how dare you in my kingdom? How is this possible that you would do this in my kingdom? Do you not know that these, I'm here to protect these personalities. So, and these living entities in the kingdom. So basically, he asked him because he realized he was going to be killed, right? And he had already taken 3 legs. So do we know what those 3 legs are, right? Do we know what those 3 legs are? There's 4 legs of religion, basically. And what are those 4 legs of religion? Do we know what they are? Okay, so the first one is austerity. And austerity means to not run after your senses rampantly, but to control your senses with the intelligence directing the mind how to control the senses. So we're not running around like dogs and cats and hogs and stuff in the material world, just unrestricted in every possible way of behavior, right? So austerity means that we should control our senses and abstain from excessive sense gratificatory acts, which distract us and are ahankaras, or stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization, right? So the next one is what? Cleanliness, right? Cleanliness. So cleanliness is not only the taking a bath in the body, right? But cleanliness is cleanliness of the mind. So we should, regularly go through what we're thinking and throw out the thoughts that are unclean. It's kind of like if you go to your garden and you see a bunch of weeds that are growing around your vegetables, wouldn't it be a good idea to pull them out, to uproot those weeds, right? So in the same way, we go into our mind, and based on the principles that Krishna has delineated in Bhagavad Gita, and we're reading about in Srimad Bhagavatam at this time, we correct ourselves and we stand corrected by the spiritual master. We try to understand what those activities should be like. So cleanliness of the body, cleanliness of mind, cleanliness of the food. If you read, there's 3 gunas, right? Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva gun, and then of course Sudha Sattva, which is pure goodness. But if you go to the chapter of the qualities of material nature, the gunas, material nature, you will find characteristics that you want to avoid in the mode of ignorance. You'll find characteristics in the mode of passion that you're going to want to avoid. Even Ashtanga Yoga starts with yama niyama. It means accept everything favorable and reject everything unfavorable. You don't want to do anything unfavorable to your path back home, back to Godhead. Why would you take a detour? Material world's a very dangerous place. So that's the idea. So cleanliness of the diet, of the mind, of the words, of the behavior, of the body. We don't engage in intoxication, liquor, prostitution, gambling. All of those are pollutants. They're unclean behavior, and that unclean behavior will drag you down, right? It becomes very, very dangerous. It's a razor's edge. It's a big funnel. If you get in the vortex of the funnel, you can easily be sucked down by these qualities of goodness, which carry a man away. Just like Arjuna said, what is it that carries a man away? What is it? Krishna says, lust only, Arjuna. It's the all-devouring enemy of the world. And it must be conquered by all means. So this bhakti yoga process, we're going to talk about some of the means to conquer the age of Kali and get ourselves in a state of Sudasattva, transcendental activity. Just like we read, they went back in their self-same bodies because everything they did was activities based around Krishna consciousness. Everything was transcendental. Everything was spiritualized. There was no material remnant to be left behind. It was completely burned up in the fire of sacrifice. So that's a beautiful thing. So what Rakesh was reading a minute ago was in the Lord, these are just a few qualities. I'll tell you what, I would say that if you could take these qualities and put them on the wall of the Capitol building of your city, of your town, of your state, of your nation, of the world, and every school, if these things were taught from the earliest of childhood, the problems that we're experiencing today would be minimized. They would be minimized. So those qualities are truthfulness, cleanliness, intolerance of another's unhappiness. Think about that for a minute. If we were intolerant of another person's unhappiness, we would be serving each other in more wonderful ways than we could ever possibly imagine. But we're not. We become callous of other people's misfortune. As a matter of fact, we've seen it so much on the news now, right? We know of somebody who got shot in France yesterday, stabbed with a knife in France. Previously, at different times, you would never have known that. But now you're inundated. Every time you turn on TV, somebody's robbed, somebody's murdered, somebody's stabbed, somebody's killed, somebody's done larceny, somebody's robbed somebody of something, entered their home, broke. These are all problems caused by a misdirected civilization. And the people who are misdirecting are now the kings, or now the rulers, or now the dictators, or now the politicians. They're the parents. They're the teachers in the school. Because they've never been trained in truthfulness, cleanliness, intolerance of another person's unhappiness, the power to control anger. Where's that at? I mean, I'm driving down the road, I'm seeing people can't control their anger just driving through the town. They're getting out shooting each other, stabbing each other. Thousands of people are doing this nowadays. These incidents have become a plague. And people are acting lawlessly on the highways. They're driving 120 miles an hour. They literally, in the face of the authority, they do criminal activity, and they could care less. They have no interest in truth, cleanliness. They have no power to control anger. They are not self-satisfied. They think they could become satisfied if they took all of your possessions. Then they could actually be happy. But they won't be happy then. They could have all the possessions of all the universes, just like Hiranyakashipu had it all, still unhappy. Ravana had it all, still unhappy. You're never going to be happy by lust because it's a blazing fire that by throwing more on it just makes the fire bigger. It's like an itch that won't go away until you scratch yourself bloody. And ultimately, you kill yourself through this scratching and this itching of the body because you wear the body down by exploiting the body, just like it says in the chapter of the divine and demoniac. It talks about they're bent on the destruction of the earth, but they're out to exploit their bodies and the bodies of others. That's what they're doing. If you look what the politicians are doing, if you look what the so-called teachers with these various philosophies that we were just talking about, all this contradiction of philosophy, sometimes what they do is they're very insidious about this. They'll take some truth and then they'll insert something of their agenda in it, and they'll put more truth and they'll layer it like a lasagna of lies, literally. And when you eat it, you think you're getting good food, but you're being poisoned. You're being infiltrated by bacteria and viruses that are coming from the concocted mind of these people who are bent on the destruction of the whole earth. And they think if they could just grow more wealth and more this and more power, that they could finally be happy. So they have no self-satisfaction, right? There's no straightforwardness. You can't understand what they're saying. You don't know what's truth. You don't know what's a lie anymore. The last leg of truth is being chopped off. So you got mercy. See, so you got truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, right? And then truthfulness. So the last leg is truthfulness, and it's being chopped off too in Kali Yuga. We're finding that everything's fake news now. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what not to believe. You've been trusting these people with your food, and they're putting all kind of chemicals in it that are causing cancer, causing you to die. You've been trusting these people with their medicines that they're giving you, and these medicines have such horrible side effects. Many people die, right? They don't have a solution to the world. They think democracy or democracy is going to save the planet. And all it is are a bunch of uninformed people who are simply looking for new ways to have their sense gratification funded by the government. And that's what they're looking for, right? So they're going to vote for stuff that you and I think are crazy. We think it's crazy, and they're changing the law every 5 minutes. So these are at best relative truths, and they apply only to a section of the population. They're not good for everybody. They're not an absolute truth, right? And they produce bad results, such as wars, famine, right? All of this stuff, pestilence. Look, we got trees on our property out here that are being eaten by bugs from China. And they have no mechanism to fight it. We got snakes in the Everglades that have eaten almost all the birds and the wildlife and the fish and everything. They're big pythons. There's no predator. We bring these things and we superimpose our will on God's will. And we end up in a horrible condition. Horrible condition. Prabhupada said the only reason we're in the material world is we forced it on Krishna. I just read this the other day. Prabhupada said this in a letter to it. If he said, why did we come here? If it's so beautiful in the spiritual sky, why would we want to come here? Prabhupada said, just like a father will tell the son, son, don't do this. It's not good for you. Don't do it. But the son says, but Dad, I want it so bad. And the dad goes, look, son, I love you. You may not be happy with me right now, but you'll be happy later because what I'm telling you is good for you. I don't care, Dad. I want it. I want it. I want it. I want it. I want it now. This is our civilization. This is our civilization. Instant gratification. Otherwise, you're out. Right? So this is the condition of the world. We forced it on Krishna. He asked us not to come, but just like a good father, okay, son, you can try it, see how you like it. So now we're in a place with no truthfulness, literally, no mercy, no cleanliness, no austerity, and everyone is simply driving as fast as they can in all directions. I mean, they got spaghetti loops on the highways now, and people are going as fast as they can go in their cars, breakneck speeds, riding on rubber balls, trying to get somewhere, to get some money, to buy some sense gratification, some liquor and some meat, gamble it. Is this a happy civilization? No. We're consuming 5 Earth planets here, 10 times as more than anybody else, and we're the most unhappy nation on planet Earth. This is an actual statistic. You can look it up. And there's no steadiness of mind. There's no control of the sense organs. They're not taking responsibility for their actions. Everybody's a victim now. Everybody has become the role of a victim. It's all someone else's fault. Everyone else is to blame. Can you not see that I'm perfect, powerful, happy? Yes, I'll give a little charity for my own aggrandizement. This is the state of religion. This is the state. Even God's been thrown out of the, not only, he's being thrown out of the churches, literally, because people are creating their own philosophies. They're not listening to what God is saying. He's been thrown out of the courthouses. We know that. He's been thrown out of politics, separation of church and state. He's been thrown out of the schools. No God here. We don't hear about your God in here, your commandments. We don't need that. So the children are being raised as rapists, robbers, murderers, thieves, liars. Really? Is that the result of not discussing the qualities of tolerance, equanimity, faithfulness, knowledge, absence of sense enjoyment, leadership, chivalry? Come on. Guys, if we just took this verse here, text 26 to 30, and we just based our lives on that, and just based our politics on that, and based every equanimity, come on. There's no equanimity. Gentility, magnanimity. Come on. All right. So you get the picture. Let's move on a little bit, unless you have a question about that. But so what did Maharaj Pariksit do? Because he was sitting there, Kali was scared to death. He could see that Maharaj Pariksit was about to kill him. So he's pretty tricky. He surrendered to Maharaj Pariksit and asked for shelter. Noble king, he had no choice. He had to offer him shelter. He says, give me a place to live. So he says, okay, you can live wherever there's liquor. You can live wherever there's prostitution, right? You can live wherever there's gambling, right? You can live wherever there's slaughter of animals. And what did Kali say? My Lord, there's no place like this. Where's this in your kingdom? There's no place like this in your kingdom. Right? So he said, oh, okay, well, I got to give you something. So you can go and be wherever there's gold. Because wherever there's gold, there's bound to be pride, lust, and intoxication. That's what the Lord said. So that's where you can find the largest building in the city now is the bank. The largest city used to be the church and the steeple of the church. And we see that in European lands. We see that in India. They build skyscrapers for God in India. Beautiful temple buildings in India. And we even see that, like I went to Germany one time to do some kirtan, and we saw that we'd be driving around. It'd be a little village in the top, at the very top of the hill. It'd be a beautiful church. So the church was the center of everybody's life, but now money is the center of everybody's life. The skyscraper is the bank. And it's the people selling you insurance as if they could protect you in some way from a disaster. And what does insurance do? Clean up the mess after it's done. Just like these fallible soldiers in our country, or the police or anybody else, they normally show up after the deed is finished. So there's no protection. There's no actual protection in those situations. So Krishna, I want to cover this real quick because we're going to run out of time. But I just wanted to cover a few things that Krishna had to say. Is there any comment or question before I do this from what we just talked about? Okay. So from these two chapters, we can understand several things. The qualities of an actual Rajarishi, those are delineated here. Okay. We can understand also the duties of a king and what a holy person, a holy king should look like, what he should do, what his activities are, what his job is, right? And that he's there to protect and reestablish these lost legs of truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, like that. So the good news is Krishna has a way out of all of this for you. And he spoke it to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. And it's also delineated throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. First of all, you got to know that in this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution, right? Neha bikrama nastosti, pragyavayo navidyate. So there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path that we're talking about can protect one from even the greatest of all kinds of danger. And the greatest danger of all is falling back down into the mode of ignorance, in the material pool. So we have to be very, very careful about this. So what does Krishna say that you should do if you want to become a saintly person, if you want to learn to please the Lord, if you want to get control of this lust and this anger and this greed and this animosity and this wrath and this all-devouring enemy of mankind? What do you have to do? What do you have to do? So the first thing Krishna says right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 58, Yada samharate chayam karmonganiva sarvasha indriyan indiyarte vyas tasya pragya pratishtita. What does this mean? One who is able to withdraw his senses from the sense objects, right? Like the tortoise is able to draw his limbs within the shell, is understand to be truly situated in knowledge. So guess what? When it says the person should have knowledge, knowledge means right action. Ignorance means wrong action. It's that simple. So if you're going to get knowledge, you got to get knowledge through the parampara. You can't use these deductive powers in the material world with these imperfect senses where you're guaranteed to cheat, right? You're going to take a shortcut, right? So the point is, we don't trust what men have to say. We listen to the words of God in his various incarnations, which are delineated in great Puranas like Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita and all this other stuff. Anybody can avail themselves. It's been translated from Sanskrit to English. Read it, study it every day, and then you can become happy. The main unhappiness here is our inability to stand the unhappiness of others. This is our unhappiness as devotees. We're happy. But when we see the state of the world, it causes pain in our heart. We're seeing these people running around. They have no idea what they're doing. And if you're not even religious, if you just simply believe in the principle of physics that every action has an opposite and equal reaction, look at the reactions these people are setting themselves up for. How can we tolerate it? We have to give these classes. We have to instruct this information, even if nobody comes. Even if nobody comes. The most valuable jewel, we talked about this. When you go to the diamonds dealer, nobody's looking at that one because they can't buy it. It costs too much. So this is the most valuable information that you could ever have, but it costs too much for a person who's engrossed in materialism and seeking these items that we just discussed a few minutes ago. So if we move on, Krishna says, yeah, well, that's a fact. So the embodied soul may still be, it may be restricted from sense enjoyment due to the practice of tapasya, austerity, right? And the taste for those sense objects may still remain. But if he continues on the way, he'll experience a higher taste. And then he'll be fixed in his consciousness. He won't fall down again, right? So Krishna says, Visaya Vidivartante Niraharasya Dehina. So that verse is one we should also study, because if we can get a higher taste, we can become fixed in our own consciousness, Krishna consciousness, because otherwise it's going to be all nonsense consciousness, all mentally concocted consciousness. Oh, if I only had this thing, if I had that car, if I had this woman, if I had that amount of money, if I had this house, if I had this, if that people would respect me in this way, finally I could be happy. No, there is no happiness in the material world. Krishna says, Matra sparsasti kontiya satosna sukadugada. You got to tolerate these bodily pleasures and pains. You got to fix yourself in the stitadira, quietude in the heart and soul, always turning back to Krishna, always. So, and he also says, Yagyartat karmanon yachat loko yam karma bandhana. So work has to be done for Krishna. It's not a question that you might do it. You got to do it. In one place, religion is like is almost it's the analogy of a ring in a bull's nose and the master pulling. So we should have the ring in our nose, and we'd be pulled by these wonderful verses and instructions that Krishna has given us in Bhagavad Gita, right? So later in the Bhagavad Gita in 334, Krishna's given us advice of how to get out of here. He says that attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by all embodied beings. It's not unique to you or me, right? But one should not fall under the control of the senses. Do not fall under the controls, because the senses and the sense objects are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization, right? So we don't fall under the control of the senses, but everybody in the world is being drugged around by the advertising. How many billions of dollars was just spent? Buy this, eat here, drive that. We used to have a song like that. Rakesh might remember that song in the Murari band. We used to have a song like that called something Ode of the City Life or something like that. I sang that song. It's a pretty interesting song, talking about how people think that if they work hard all day in the factory and they can go finally buy some sense gratification, that they'll be happy. And that's just not going to work out for them in the long run. So Krishna is giving us information about what is actually right. So what does Krishna say in 5:22 in the Bhagavad Gita? Here's what Krishna says. An intelligent person, an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery. Think about it. Intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. This morning, yesterday was a pretty nice day. This morning I got up, I had to go out. It was cold outside. It was painful. I was like, oh my God. So the contact with the senses may appear to be pleasurable, but really it's all just pain. And in the final course, it's complete pain, because we leave the body generally screaming in agony, just like we enter the womb or leave the womb screaming in agony. This is the actual condition that we found ourselves in. Squeezed out head first, and only to be greeted by a hard smack, immediately gasping for air, screaming in agony. And we do this repeatedly. Are we crazy? Yeah. Right? Crazy. That means to do the same thing over and over again and have the same result. We're doing it over and over and over again. So we've got to stop this. So that's why it says, such pleasures have a beginning and an end. And so the wise man does not delight in those pleasures. That's what Krishna has to say in the Bhagavad Gita about that. So guys, we're running out of time. So what I'll do is I'll just finish this by leaving you with something that will replace all of this that we think we're leaving behind. Renunciation just means to use everything you've been given for Krishna. You're not giving up your house. You're not giving up your car. You're not giving up your job. You're not giving up your money. You're not giving up your wife. You're not giving up your children. You're not giving up nothing. You're getting everything. Krishna's giving you everything, right? So what does he ask in return? He says, Yoginam api sarvesham matgatenantaratmana Shradavan bhajate yomam, right? Sa me yuktat mano mataha. Krishna says, and of all of the yogis, all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshiping me in transcendental loving service, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and I consider him to be the highest of all. So that's your job. That's your job. Now you know what your job is, right? So we're hearing Kali Yuga come. This is 5,000 years ago. Now we see the result of these things that Kali has done. And all we see is war and suffering and famine, and people are turning to drugs, they turn into addiction because they don't have Krishna. If you don't have God, if you don't have a higher taste, you are a pleasure seeker. You must have pleasure. You must have it. Krishna is a pleasure seeker. Rama means the source of all pleasure. There's nothing wrong with pleasure. We're not saying everybody has to go wear, like black clothes and although we have respect for people who do. Okay. My point is that we're just saying that your life can become everything you've ever dreamed possible if you simply add Krishna. That's all you got to do. And if you add Krishna, then it all makes sense. If you don't add Krishna, it's chaos. It has no rhyme or reason, has no benefit, has no use. Throw it in the trash. You'd be better off throwing your life away, because all you're doing is developing more and more karmic retribution, which is not at all what you want. So Krishna says, Madmana bhava madbhakto, majjajinam namaskuru. Worship me, think of me, fix your mind on me, dedicate yourself to me. Surely if you do, you're going to come to me. There's no question you'll come home. And then all of this suffering, and your life may be really nice right now, but is there a guarantee? Did you get a written guarantee this morning when you got up? Somebody sent you one? I don't think so. So you got to really take all of this stuff into consideration, go back to the square one, retrain the mind, retrain the senses, retrain the activities, and put God in the center. And then you will remember the Lord at the time of death, and certainly you will attain to the kingdom of God. So we pray this for you. We pray this for your whole family. We pray this for our nation. We pray this for the world that we're living in. We pray that good people will step up, and good people will hear this message, and good people will take this message to every town and village and take the holy name, take the prashad, take the beautiful lordships, and show the world how easy it really can be to rectify this situation. And we can make Kali Yuga a golden age like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has desired. And it's going to happen anyway. I mean, that's why we're all drawn together to even speak about it. It's going to happen by the Lord's will. But the Lord uses us as his hands and his feet and his arms. And we're here to try to do the work. And we're going to encourage everybody else to please do the same. And so thank you for coming to this latest installment. We've now got all the Bhagavad Gita recorded. We've got the first canto. We've only got 2 more chapters to go in the first canto, and we'll be finished with the first canto. And these are select stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll be picking out stories. If you have a favorite story and you like to have a study done around that story in the Bhagavatam, please, advise us, and we'll add that to the list. Okay. So listen, I'm honored, and I am just happy to be your servant, and I'm happy to share this information with you today. And I'm very, very just humbled. So please come again and bring all your friends, and also advise people to go to the YouTube channel Bhakti Yoga Tennessee or Gayatri Dasa, and they can hear these lectures over and over again and these discussions. We can't get to everything in 1 hour. It's just the way it is, but we try to do the best we can. So is there any other questions? If not, I'll finish the class. Any other points? Any other questions? Okay. Well, with your permission, I'm going to go ahead and end this particular installment, but we'll be here again next Monday night, and we hope you will too. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.